It is your Thursday daily delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Happy to be back at it again for another day. Good show coming up. Velle E, Neal III will join me here in a little while to talk Twins, talk a little bit of Timberwolves, asked him some Vikings questions. We had a good back and forth about quarterbacks, Karl Anthony Towns. We got a little Gopher hockey stuff at the end, so it's kind of a smattering of things, but this is the time of year that requires a smattering of things because there is so much going on right now. Velle and I did not talk about the Masters, but that's because I saved that for Jim Souhan, who's down in Augusta, also Star Tribune columnist. He'll join me here in just a minute to set up the start of that tournament, which begins today. A lot of intrigue, a lot of drama potentially ahead in these 4 days down at the Masters. I'll get to a wild injury update, a couple other lingering stories. Twins in action, coming home now finally for the opener on Friday. First, though, what did I miss? It's a Twins story, but it's not so much on the field as it is off the field. Now, we've talked many times over the last couple years since this podcast started about the troubles of Bally Sports North, parent company Diamond Sports, and the ability or inability to get games on TV. And coming to a head with the financial implications of this last month when Diamond Sports filed for bankruptcy, in bankruptcy court right now, seeking some protections and trying to reorganize. But in that process, some interesting developments coming to light, the first of which reported by the Business Journal earlier this week, that they missed a payment to the Twins and did not pay them at the start of this season for their 2023 contract. Now, they've paid some teams, haven't paid other teams while they undergo this reorganization. And what's interesting with the Twins is the Twins being in their last year of their contract with Bally Sports North, perhaps not seen as a essential party to Bally Sports North as they try to reorganize. So I think a little bit of jockeying, gamesmanship going on here right now. But that's a big deal for the Twins because, as I've reported before, they make more than $40 million a year from that local TV contract. Now, if they reorganize at some point, whether it's sooner or later, and I think there is an interest on their part to try something else in 2024 and beyond, given a lot of the frustration they've had with Bally Sports North and not having the games available to a wide enough swath of audience. And Bally Sports North's subscription base has basically been cut in half in the last 5 years, and a lot of factors for that. But that's got to be a frustration for the Twins. Is there a better distribution model to get games in front of more people who want to watch them? And what does that economic model look like? Well, it could be coming sooner rather than later because The Athletic reporting on Wednesday, this was one of their national writers, Daniel Kaplan, reporting that at Major League Baseball, on behalf of the Twins and the Cleveland Guardians, who also had their payment skipped by Bally Sports North, by Diamond Sports, Major League Baseball has filed an emergency motion, reading from the Athletic story, in the Diamond Sports bankruptcy case, asking the court to make the company pay the Twins and Guardians or else. And basically they're saying if they don't pay them by April 13th, which is soon, that's a week from today, they're asking that the Diamond Sports either pays the Twins or Guardians or terminates the contracts so the teams can take over the broadcasts. We're talking about a week from now. They're asking for that by next week, this time next week. And I don't know how fast this is going to move. I don't know what the ruling in this will be, but it does underscore how quickly this kind of disruption is potentially accelerating. Now, again, things move fairly slowly in courts generally, bankruptcy courts. I'm not a bankruptcy lawyer. I have no real expertise here, but I do know that things tend to move kind of slowly in the courts. I don't think you're going to wake up next Thursday and see the Twins on a different channel or have to figure out how you're going to watch them if you currently watch them on Bally Sports North. What I do know is it feels like this is getting more serious. When you're talking about court cases, temporary injunctions, people trying to force the issue one way or the other. Bally and Diamond kind of forcing things one way by not making the payment. Obviously, that's their first action. And Major League Baseball, on behalf of the Twins and then the Guardians, forcing the action in the other direction, saying, hey, if you're not going to pay, why should you get to show these games right now? You are benefiting from having these games on TV. You're getting advertising. You're getting all this stuff. Why do you get to keep showing these games if you're not paying them, if you're missing these payments? Now, they do have 15 days, I believe, to make those payments. That's what's been reported in the Business Journal. But we will see where that goes. But to me, that is another step in how serious this is becoming. And I'm hoping to get to the bottom of this. I'm hoping to get some insights from Major League Baseball fairly soon into what the end game in all of this is, because I think this is a fascinating subject. This does not just involve baseball, but they are at the front and center of potentially a revolution in how you watch a major league sport. So we will see where this is headed, hoping to provide some more answers and context in the days and weeks to come. But right now, that is the latest update, and it is very interesting to me.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
Let's bring in Jim Souhan again from Augusta, where he's covering the Masters in fine fashion. About to get going here right now, Jim, but some storylines, of course. The Masters is never short of storylines, but I think this year's, as you wrote today, has an element of intrigue that maybe past years don't have. Just a lot of different things swirling around, including potential for weather. What do you see right now as they're about to go off? What do you see as the biggest things to watch for right now?
Yeah, let's start with the weather. The original forecast for this week had a lot of rain over the weekend, including on Sunday. They haven't had a Monday finish here since 1983. The place drains incredibly well. They are willing to go off early on Sunday if they have to get it in. First Masters I covered was 2005, and they played much of the third round on Sunday morning, and they still got the tournament in, and Tiger had the big comeback. Right now, the newest weather forecasts are that it might not rain or rain much on Sunday, so I really think they're just going to get it in. Their goal is to be on prime time on CBS on Sunday night with handing out the green jacket, so they'll find a way. I mean, they have more money than God, so they're probably going to tell God what to do, and it's all going to work out for them. And by the way, the rumor around here is they spent about 28 million to move the 13th tee back. They bought land from the Augusta Country Club, which is adjacent to them. So they throw a few nickels around here. But so I think the real weather concern is Friday afternoon. We are looking at probably some rain and maybe higher winds. So the people who go out late today might have a great advantage. They might get to play in nice warm weather today, get their round in tomorrow, maybe before rain starts or the winds pick up. And some of the people going out really late today are Spieth and Finau and Rory and Scheffler. We can't be certain what the weather is going to turn out like, but there is a chance that they're going to have an advantage over the field.
$28 million will buy you about half a season of one primetime golfer in the Live Tour, won't it? Is that about the going rate?
Well, that is the funny thing here is that probably the only people in the world who have more money than the Masters people are the Live people.
And that, of course, is the storyline that's dominated the week. And we talked about that some yesterday, but you made a good point before we started recording just now of kind of the mental battle that golf is, at its core, a mental struggle. It's just you have nobody else to blame when something goes wrong. And you add one more thing to it, which is this kind of rivalry now between these two tours and something else for these guys to think about potentially. How do you think that plays out this week?
I think that is the most interesting thing to watch in the first couple of rounds. And it could come into play in a final round too. But here you have like Cam Smith, who's a wonderful player. He wins the British last year. And then he basically says, I'm going to Live. And everybody had always thought he was just a fun, I always describe him as the backup bass player in your local AC/DC cover band. I mean, he's got the mullet, he's got the attitude. He was always funny. And all of a sudden he says he's going to Live. He starts facing scrutiny and he soured. He soured pretty quickly. He comes in here today as someone who's played very well in the Masters and most of the questions about Live and everything else. And he just feels defensive and he hasn't played well this year. I mean, this guy should be a contender, and I just don't think he's going to contend under these circumstances. And you look at Mickelson. Usually Mickelson is just verbose when he's at the Masters. He loves talking. He loves putting himself on this stage, and he loves playing here. And he's defensive. I just have trouble believing those guys are going to play their best under these circumstances. If there is a live golfer, if there are live golfers who are going to play that well this week, I would think they're either going to be Dustin Johnson, just because Dustin doesn't think about anything. So he's not going to have any stray thoughts getting in the way. He doesn't have any thoughts getting in the way. And Brooks Koepka is the kind of guy who can, he's kind of like the Michael Jordan type, who can invent an adversary to rail against. So he can, Koepka is the kind of guy who can say, okay, yeah, I did the wrong thing, but you're criticizing me for it. Therefore, I'm going to win to spite you.
Right.
Yeah. So those are the two guys I could see not being too negatively affected by all the live talk.
Now, the live tour, obviously, we've made a lot about the rivalry, but the golf itself is just not, to me, as challenging. And does that play into this at all? I mean, these guys just haven't been maybe mentally tested in the same way as some of the PGA Tour guys. I mean, maybe that's overblown, but just wondering about that out loud, or whether that becomes a factor.
I don't think that's overblown. PGA Tour pros play 4 rounds. They have to play well enough to make the cut, to earn money or significant money. They play difficult courses. And that's just not happening on the live tour. They're playing lesser courses. They're playing no cut golf. They're playing 3 rounds. They're playing these weird team things that nobody really understands or cares about. That, I think it's a big factor. I just can't imagine that Cam Smith and Dustin Johnson are as prepared to play the Masters as they would be in a normal season where they were just on the PGA Tour.
A couple final things, Jim. One, I mean, our local won the par 3. Now, it doesn't bode well for his chances in the Masters, because the par 3 champ has never won. But that's a nice thing for Tom Hoge.
Really cool thing, and it probably shows you that he's not too nervous, which I think fits his personality. I don't think he's a nervous guy. The other thing, it does speak to his game. He is an excellent iron player. He certainly hits it fine off the tee, and he can certainly putt well enough to win a tournament. But his real strength is iron play, and that showed up yesterday. And I'll out myself. I'll admit this. When I first started coming to the Masters in the mid 2000s, I would cover the par 3 tournament, or at least kind of walk amongst people and try to keep an eye on things. And the crowds have gotten immense. You can't get anywhere near anything. So I just blew off yesterday. I didn't even really pay attention to I filed all my other stuff, and I did some reading, and I look up, and Tom Hoge won. I didn't watch a single shot of it.
Well, it's okay. He'll have a chance in the real thing starting today, but he's not among the favorites. We'll be honest about that. Yeah. Let's talk about the field itself before we go. And Scotty Scheffler trying to repeat. That's only been done. He's trying to become the 4th person to repeat, and maybe he has as good a chance as any recent champ to do it, just because of where his game's at. What makes him so good, and who else is in that mix with him right now?
I mean, even if it wasn't for history, if it wasn't for the fact that hardly anybody ever repeats, I think he'd be the overwhelming favorite. Okay. I have dinner with the Atlanta writers at their house on Wednesday nights for the Masters, and we ended up having a fantasy draft, and I had the first pick, and I took Scheffler. He hits it high, he hits it long. I mean, that's the thing is, you want to be able to hit it high, long enough, and land it soft enough that you can hit a long club into 13 or 15 or 8. You want to have the nerves that will allow you to handle the occasional bad bounce or piece of bad luck here. You have to be able to get up and down from anywhere. You have to be smart enough and strategic enough to know where to miss. So combination of hitting it high and far, being able to work it both ways, and having a phenomenal short game, and having nerves. I thought the most interesting thing about last year's Masters was Scheffler on Saturday night said, hey, he just acted really cool and calm. Then after he won the tournament, he admitted that he woke up on Sunday morning, he was like crying and just like almost had the shakes. For him to be able to get past that and come out and play well enough to dominate the tournament says a lot. B, the fact he's comfortable enough with himself to admit that.
Yeah.
Is, I think, a really fascinating insight into him. He I always hesitate to say these guys are down to earth because something, they fly private jets and they live among the elite. He might be the rare person I actually believe when people tell me he's really down to earth. The way he lives, the way, he isn't looking for bling. He isn't looking for attention. He just loves playing golf and has a great temperament for the game. I just think he should be the favorite here.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it all sorts itself out starting today. Jay, we'll talk to you one more time tomorrow. Go enjoy the golf, and we'll get you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Michael.
Always appreciate chatting with Jim Souhan. Does a great job covering all sorts of stuff, but in particular golf. You should follow his coverage, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, if you are interested in the Masters, because he will have you covered in very, very good shape from that tournament. So follow along, like I said, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com with Jim Souhan's coverage. Twins, by the way, played and lost their second straight game. Started out 4-0, 0-2 since then, but continue to get great starting pitching. Just keep that in mind in the context of my conversation with Velle E. Neal that I'm about to share with you here. He and I recorded, I think I even noted it while we were recording, and he might have brought it up a couple times. We recorded Wednesday before that last game of the Marlins series, just timing that was the way we could do it. So, anything we talk about does not include that game. I think most of the things still hold up. The starting pitching's been great. Pablo Lopez was really good again yesterday. Just things fell apart in the late innings. Miami ended up winning that game. So keep that in mind in the context of this conversation with Velle E. Neal III. Happy as always to get Velle E. Neal III on Daily Delivery to talk about a bunch of different things. Velle just came off of vacation. Sounds like he had a good time whilst out west. And Velle, and just in the time that it took me to introduce you, I think the Twins might have finished another game.
Oh, God, yes. That is the fastest game I remember since I think Carl Pavano pitched at home, and it may have been against the White Sox. It may have been against Burley.
I think it was Pavano-Burley, yeah.
And there was a dangerous storm on the way.
Yes.
And I think that game got done in like 147 or 151 or something like that.
They definitely beat 2 hours in that game, yeah.
And everybody was able to get home before the bad storm hit.
Yes.
Yeah, I've only covered a few. I can't remember the number of games I've covered that have been under 2 hours. Tim Belcher did it in Toronto once when I covered the Royals. Another Twins pitcher did it. Also in Toronto. There was another 2 hour game because that's the night I got hit in the head by Paul Molitor's wife, not Destiny, but Linda, because I mentioned her in a notebook item that she had fallen off the table and hit her head, and Molitor had to leave the ballpark to go take care of her. And she was mad because I mentioned her name in the paper. And we had this fast game by the Twins. Matthew LaCroix hit a grand slam. I remember that. And
sounds like a Carlos Silva start, maybe.
I worked out a deal with the Twins to pay for them so I could ride on the charter flight coming back from Canada. Wow. And I'm sitting in my seat, and all of a sudden I hear a whack in the back of my head, and it's Linda Molitor. Why would you put my name in the paper? God. So the amazing things that come to my mind when I start thinking about 2 hour games.
2 hour games. So that shows you how rare they are. I mean, but maybe not anymore. I mean, all of the Twins games, and we're recording Wednesday before they play their final game in Miami, but all the first 5 games have all been like 235 or less. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It's going on across the league too, and fans can be happy. Fans can be happy, but the alcoholics are going to be mad because now they have less time to drink. So that's led to a conspiracy theory that they'll get rid of the clock because teams want people to be in the ballpark 3 hours so they can drink more. I think this is better. If you're a Twins fan, you have seen the games once the clock strikes 10 o'clock, regardless, a lot of times, regardless of what the score is. Families are getting up and leaving the ballpark because they got kids who like, we got to go to work, we got to go to school tomorrow. 10 o'clock is it. Or they'll stay and wait until Mauer batted. Yeah, and then they would leave
back in the day. Yeah.
So I still think this is a good thing. I can't wait till the first time there's a 6:30 game, or is it 6 o'clock game, weekday at Target Field before school lets out. And it goes an hour and 57 minutes. That means we're done before 8 o'clock.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's and more so than the benefits to us or to people leaving the game. I feel like it's not if anything, it's helping the game itself. There's just less dead space, and hopefully it's not like speeding people up so much that they're kind of out of their element. And there's probably going to be some adjustment to it. But I feel like the players, by and large, like have pretty quickly adapted to it, right? Like they seem like they're on board with this.
Yeah, I think they have adapted. It won't take long for them to get on board. Although I saw Manny Machado got thrown out of a game yesterday, I believe, because he complained about being charged a strike for not being in the batter's box and being attentive to the pitcher.
Attentive to the pitcher, yes.
And then he got mad and he got tossed from the game. So there's still some growing pains with that. But at the same time, I saw that Rocco mentioned in the paper today that he thinks one of the reasons why Maeda had to come out of the game was because of the pace of the game was going so fast, trying to recover. It's weird. We don't. I saw Maeda shaking his arm. I saw the trainer going out, and then I saw Maeda rubbing his right forearm as he left the mound. I'm like, that's not a good sign. So now are they confident that's just scar tissue, and they're going Kenta's going to be fine? No, I totally expect Maeda to be skipped in his next turn in the rotation, at least. And then they'll have a spot starter. Maybe Cole Sands will take that spot for Maeda, and then we'll see how he feels, in a couple of weeks or so. Because there's no way that all of a sudden you just stop everything unless there's scar tissue breaking up in there that we don't know.
Yeah, well, that's true. But that moment aside, first time through the rotation, when they gave up 3 runs, the starters gave up 3 runs in the first 5 starts, and they didn't give up anything in the first 2 with Lopez, and then and then obviously Sonny Gray, and then Joe Ryan was pretty good, 6 innings, just 1 run. I mean, what we thought was going to be the strength of this team so far, plus a lot of Joey Gallo bombs, has kind of been the case.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been really encouraging to see. Fans are still complaining about Rocco not pulling pitches too early. I'm like, look, you guys should be cultured baseball viewers now. Let's just wait to the end of the month, which pitchers are allowed to throw 100 pitches in a game.
Right.
I mean, Sandy Alcantara, Alcantara stayed 9 innings. He didn't throw 100. His last pitch was like the pitch number 100. In those situations, I could see it. Early in the year, you're still building up your pitchers. And usually that first 2 months, you're being careful. Then the middle 2 months, you're letting them go. And if they go 110, 115, yeah. But then, once you get to August and September, you taper down. I mean, that's the way a lot of pitching coaches operate. The one thing I was encouraged about with Maeda yesterday, because I got up this morning and got on StatCast to look up numbers. Since joining the Twins, Maeda's fastball usage has dropped significantly. I mean, he was throwing his fastball 40% of the time with the Dodgers. Comes to the Twins, it dropped to like under 20%. So I'm watching the game with friends yesterday, and I'm going, oh my God, I don't want to call him a junk baller, but it seems like he's trying to throw everything but a fastball right now. And when he does, it's like 90. I think it's fast. I think he topped 92 on the gun.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and it's about a mile and a half, 2 miles an hour slower than we've seen. We saw him touch 94 with the Twins, but I got a StatCast today. He threw 19% of his pitches were four-seam fastballs. And I looked at his last good year, which was 2020, and he threw 18%.
Okay.
A fastball. So basically his usage was about the same. He throws that slider more, especially left-handers now, than he did before he came to when he was with the Dodgers. And he's been effective. So basically Maeda was throwing about the same way he did when he first came to the organization. They had that great Boffle year in 2020. Right. So I'm a little encouraged by that. I don't know. There was one picture. I don't know if you saw it, Mike, I put on Twitter. It was on our website too. And there's a picture of Maeda delivering a pitch. It was right before he released it. And he had his eyes closed.
Wow.
And so I was like, he is just putting everything he's got into trying to get as much out of this pitch as he can. And that was a warning sign to me. But then I look at the StatCast and I was like, well, he was the same Maeda is a couple years ago. So I'm curious to see if he does get a couple of miles an hour back. To be honest with I'd be more concerned about his command than Velo at this time, because how many 35-year-olds are going to be able to throw as fast as they did when they were 32 or 31? So I'd like to see the command come back. But he threw some nice breaking balls, some nice sliders that Marlins players chased. So let's see what he does against better competition. The the Houston. He's got Houston. He's got the Yankees coming up. 7 games against the Yankees before this month is over. You got some quality teams coming up, so we'll see. But this was a positive step for Kenta.
Yeah, we're gonna learn a lot more about them against Houston and the Yankees. Like you're right. I mean, they've been beating up on, certainly beat up on Kansas City, and then pitching wise, holding the Marlins down early. But you got to beat those teams too. You do have to take advantage of what the schedule puts in front of you, and I feel like they've done that to a certain point so far. So definitely an encouraging start for them. I like what I see. I'm more, anytime you start 4-0, you can just start getting optimistic, but you were on them for 90, 91 wins at the start, and that does feel realistic once you see them one time through the rotation. You're like, man, this as long as the health holds up, there's not a lot of weaknesses there.
No, and my thing is, once you get to the final 3 starters, I think the Twins are going to have an advantage against a lot of teams that they face.
Right, and it was their 5 against the Marlins 1 the other day, essentially. Exactly.
So, because Pablo's back on the mound in about half an hour against the Marlins, and I'm sure the Marlins are shaking in their boots like, oh no, we got to face a guy that we've watched pitch before. But I just like that depth, and I like their options too, because it takes you about 8 or 9 pitchers to get through a season, and I like the fact that Ober, can be called in. I like what I saw from Louis Varland. Simeon Woods Richardson, I need to see more. I mean, he made 1 start. It was okay. He's been traded a couple times, so people have been betting on his upside. But I just see a guy who's more of a Booth Bonser guy, who's a number 4 guy, number 5 guy, number 10. Hey, Booth Bonser had to start a playoff game for the Twins.
He had to. That was Lavelle. That was by default. He was there. Didn't he end up being like their number 2 starter in 2006? In the playoffs once Liriano got hurt and Radke was basically pitching on 1 shoulder ligament.
And that's crazy because a lot of people, because there was a talk on Twitter a few days ago, this is the best Twins starting 5 since when, and a lot of people went back to 2006.
Yeah,
with Liriano and Radke,
and Santana,
and Santana. We saw what happened with that season, but Woods Richardson is a number 8 guy in the pecking order. I can't complain. I think they still have Aaron Sanchez too. I think he agreed to go to St. Paul as well, so he's got starting experience. So I like how they're set up, because you're going to need about 9. Hell, I think the Twins had 14 different stars last year or something like that.
They've had a lot, yeah.
And you're going to need to get through a season, and so they're in good shape. And Cole Sands can make an emergency start if he has to too. I'm not a big Cole Sands guy. I'm flying over the place here, but I'm really disappointed about Josh Winder. I really want to see Winder succeed as a starter, but once he gets over this recent injury, they're going to make him a reliever, which could be intriguing because he throws 96 as a starter. So if he's in shorter stints, he could be whiffing it at 98 as a reliever and being effective here. So, and it just comes to mind when we were doing our interviews at the State Fair. I had Derek Falvey on in front of the crowd, and he said 50% of players who are signed or drafted as a starter make their first major league appearance as a reliever.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds about right. Once you think about it, because it's so hard to get starters through a minor league system and get to the point where they can throw 200 innings a year, because that doesn't happen anymore. I'm just amazed at Sandy Alcantara. I love watching him pitch.
Yeah.
And they let him go. I think he's led the league in innings thrown the last 2 years. He was a Cy Young winner last year. I wish the Twins would have traded for him instead of Pablo.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that.
It wasn't feasible.
No, good luck with that. Well, they did pretty well, it seems like. I mean, so far, so good. Let's push to the Wolves for a bit. They lose to the Blazers on Sunday. And you were probably out in Vegas around that time, and that was the largest upset in terms of point spread. 19.5 that game went out at, because the Blazers are clearly in tank mode. 19.5 at that point, and they lose to the Blazers. Largest upset against the spread in 30 years for a team that was that much of an underdog. And then they go out Tuesday night and beat the Nets in Brooklyn and kind of put themselves back in a spot where top 8 feels a lot more feasible. I can't figure this team out. Nobody's been able to figure this team out all year, except for the fact that they don't seem like they take some opponents seriously, and then they're able to kind of turn it on just enough to keep you interested.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. So now they've lost to the Blazers. I know they lost to the Pistons. I'm pretty sure they've lost to the Magic.
They're 4-7 against the teams in this league that haven't won at least 30 games. The 4 worst teams in this league this year, they've gone 4-7. 4-7. They got swept by the Pistons, swept by the Hornets. I think they're 1-2 against the Spurs, and they're 3-1 against the Rockets. It's terrible.
It's awful. It's awful. And it's aggravating. And this is why I'm advocating for this season to end. Because one, they don't know what they are still because of the injury to Cat, and from the shift at point guard from D'Lo to Conley, they're still trying to figure out who they are and what they are. And there's not enough time for them to find that out as the postseason arrives. 2, they've been aggravating. They'll step up against good teams. I made it seemed like a wacky prediction at the time. I won my 3-2 pitches. I said they're going 4-1 in his West Coast swing. And a lot of that was predicated on them beating, I forgot, they lost the first game. It may have been
that was the one a few weeks ago, right? That kind of saved their season. Yeah.
But then they turn around, they beat the Clippers.
And they
beat Sacramento.
Yeah.
And they ended up hitting 4-1 on the spot. Oh, it was Golden State. I said they got to beat Golden State because they were still out some players and they lost that game. But then they won the next 3. And then 4-1 in that trip. So so they step up against good teams and they play down to the bad teams. And we just don't know. What can you hang your head on about this team? Are they a great rebounding team? I'm not sure. Are they a great defensive team? Not sure.
They can be.
A great offensive team? They can be.
They're not a great offensive team.
Well, with Ant's, and that's the thing about Ant. One thing he has to work out, this is my opinion too, and I'm biased because I watched Michael Jordan as a kid. The thing about Mike was that when he needed to get his game going, he would go to the mid-range game. And he would go to the elbow jumpers, and he would go to the down to the baseline, and shoot 15-footers. Ant starts missing threes, and he's like, "I'm determined to hit a 3," and he keeps throwing down from 3. I think he needs to start focusing. Let's get closer to the basket, see if I can get in a rhythm that way, and then go after going in, then go back out. It seems like I gotta shoot this 3. I missed it. I'm gonna shoot a 3. I'm gonna keep shooting 3s until I hit one. And I'm like, man, you gotta understand your abilities and your limitations. Sometimes it's just going to be like Max Kepler against a shift. There's no shift now. That first ground ball he's going to hit that goes to the right side of the infield for a hit, it's going to be a mental boost for him. Just like Ant. Get to the free throw line. Hit an elbow jumper a couple times. Then get your game going.
Now, what's your minimum, like to frame the Wolves season? And let's talk Wild a little bit too in the context to frame those as successful at this point. What needs to happen to the Wolves? At least to me, need to get into the actual playoffs, not just the play-in. If all you do is go play in and you're done, that's a colossal failure based on where you started the year with the Gobert trade. And I think the Wild, in order for this to be a success, I think they got to win a playoff series. I don't think getting to the playoffs with this team and then losing in the first round in a competitive series, which they've already done twice, I don't think that's enough. I think you got to at least win a playoff series if you're the Wild.
Right. I try to make these playoff runs stand alone in their own and not worry about what's happened in the past. But we do live in a town in which the baseball team has lost 18 consecutive playoff games.
Yes.
And I know they run up against the Yankees in a lot of those situations, and that hasn't helped. And they were up against the Astros, in 2020, and they were a good team. They probably weren't favored in a lot of those games either. But still, you should be able to pull off a victory here or there. But that said, I've seen the Wild as a work in progress, and I think Bill Guerin's done a great job of adding here and there to make the roster better. I was screaming about them getting bigger before the trade deadline, and he was able to bring in a couple, nice size guys, which is going to help. There's a rumor that Kaprizov may be ready to play here pretty soon.
Yeah, so he skated today. He skated on Wednesday.
We'll get to see how it all looks here. Once again, we get to see what it looks like with Kaprizov and the new players they've added. But I like that they're a little bit bigger. There's a little more grit because they run up in the postseason. They run to these bigger teams, and it seems like it gives them trouble. And I think they're better equipped to deal with that now than they were in recent postseason. So I would like to see them win at least one playoff series. But they have been threatening to take over the Western Conference lead.
Yeah.
So yes, our expectation should be win at least a playoff series, and then possibly be in a position to upset someone. So
yeah, I think that's fair.
I agree with the Wolves. It's so hard because after the Gobert trade, I was like, this team should win at least 50 games a year.
Me
in the
too.
next 4 years.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was.
Yeah. And well, of course, we know that they're going to be short of that. And once again, they get part of a pass because Cat was out for so long with the mysterious calf injury. But at the same time, I didn't see them play as a cohesive unit without Cat.
Not at all.
Sporadically, it happened once in a while, but it was sporadic. So I just sense that they don't know who they are, and that's why I kind of want the season to end so they can kind of recalibrate and get ready for the next season.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a big off season for them. Whenever the off season arrives, they got some big decisions to make. Do they feel like they can improve enough internally with this core and see, try to see what has worked with this group when everyone's been healthy, or did they got to pull the plug on something? Is that a Cat trade? I don't know what it is exactly, but I think this is going to be a big off season for them. Of course, we're not there yet, but that's going to be interesting. And we're not going to judge it on these last two games, but this is going to tell us something. Like what they do in crunch time here is going to tell us something, I think, about their trajectory going forward.
I agree. I mean, that's a fair point too, since all hands are now on deck, and regardless if they have to get out of the play-in situation, or is there a chance he can still get out of play-in? I think there is, right?
Oh yeah, they got a chance to be. Yeah, they got a slim chance to be in top 6. They've got a decent chance now of being top 8 at least, and having 2 cracks at the play-in. So
yeah, so I mean, this will help how they play in pressure games, and of course, remember last year when he got to the playoff game and won, and they partied like it was 1999, and I got mad at everybody, and people are mad at me for let us have some happiness because we don't.
That's right. I remember that.
We don't have reasons to be happy. I was like, well, where did it get you? Where did it get you? It got you out in the next series against Memphis. So I want this team to thrive because I think that I keep running into people who say this is a hockey town. This is a hockey town. I'm like, no, this is a hell of a basketball town. Yeah. When the Gophers or the Wolves are going good, people are flocking in the stadium and getting fired up. And both teams, have been, well, the Gophers definitely at rock bottom. But the Wolves have kind of been dormant for the last few years. When you go to 3 playoff series in 15 years, is that where we're at now? 2 or 3?
Yeah, last 15 years? 2, just the 2 since the Western Conference Finals run, the Butler year and then the one last year.
You have forced your fan base to go into hiding, and I want them to come back out and be happy that there's a team that's worth getting behind, because I know this is a state of hockey. This is a hell of a basketball town. We're putting out great high school players that go to colleges and play well. We used to have a good college basketball program, and the next good one may be St. Thomas. But the Wolves, the Wolves are the team that should be stepping up here and bringing glory to this area and getting people in love with basketball again.
Couple final thoughts, Lavelle. One, I keep seeing Hendon Hooker's name mocked to the Vikings at 23, the quarterback from Tennessee. He showed up in Todd McShay's most recent mock draft, and that's again, I don't know if this is steam coming from all the same places, if this is smokescreen, if this is just guys identifying a need for the Vikings and a player that might be available there, but it's awfully interesting to see him showing up in 3 or 4 different mock drafts in the last couple of weeks. I don't know what to make of it. Hendon Hooker's 25. He led college football, I think, in total QBR. Like he's a good player in a unique system. I don't know what to make of that.
I like Hendon Hooker more than I like Anthony Richardson. I didn't even know who the hell Anthony Richardson was before, all of a sudden mock draft started, and all of a sudden now he's up in the top 10, top 5. Hendon Hooker, before he got injured, at least was a guy that you were like, you know what? It'd be interesting to see if he could play in the NFL. And if the Vikings draft him, he'll have a year or two to marinate behind Kirk Cousins, which isn't a bad thing, which means he would be 27 by the time he gets the starting job.
I think he'd be a starter by 20. He'd be started by the 24 season, so he'd be 26, I think, in his
26. Yeah. So that may be a situation where some people may be a little nervous about. But again, how old was Carson Palmer? He played, I think, 4 years at USC, sat for a year at Cincinnati. He ended up having a really good career. So I'm all for it. Pat Mahomes sat for a year. It's not the bad thing.
I think the biggest concern people have with someone who's that age is that he's been putting up numbers against guys younger than him, not that he's old coming into the league.
Yeah, that there's no more upside. I mean, that's the Stetson Bennett argument, because no one's looking at him as he may be the 10th best quarterback coming out this year, but he's probably gonna end up in the third round, maybe. I don't know. And all of a sudden you have a Brock Purdy situation where he slides to the end of the draft. He gets drafted. Like Brock Purdy, I saw him playing college. He's nothing. And all of a sudden he gets to the NFL. But there's nothing like watching quarterbacks slide up the draft board as the draft approaches.
Yes.
Hendon Hooker was not mentioned as a first round guy until a couple weeks ago.
But quarterbacks are so valuable. They're so valuable that they just keep moving.
Anthony Richardson was like a back end of the first round guy, and now he's sliding up in the top 5. I mean, it's remarkable. Yes, quarterback position is so vital, but I think so many quarterbacks get overdrafted. You know, they just get overdrafted, man. And then once you start putting a first round pick designation on a guy, then there's expectations. Then your fan base is like, when's the first round guy going to play? When's he going to play?
Right.
My God, the Vikings drafted Kellen Mond. And they were like
third round guy, but still, everyone was like,
when's he going to play?
Yep, you're right. You're right.
And it turned out he couldn't play. And he was gone.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Zimmer was a damning indictment on Mon when late in the season, like, are we going to see Mon? No, why not? He says, I've seen enough of him.
I've seen him every day in practice, basically. And the new regime didn't keep him either, so it wasn't just Zimmer that didn't like him. Hey, last thought, Lavelle, quick. Gophers going to win it all, Frozen Four. They got the semifinals Thursday night against BU. Is this the year?
I hope so, because I wrote about them from my New Year's Day package about teams that could be inspirational in 2023, and they were my first team. I'm glad that line of Snuggerud, Cooley, and Matty Nines is starting to get some love here, because it's a fantastic line. And early in the season, Arizona State coach is like, this may be the best line in college hockey. And now the talk is this may be the best line in Gophers history, which to me supersedes best line in college hockey.
Yes.
Given the Gophers history.
Yes.
And I just remember I had the pleasure of covering the Olympics in 2022 in Beijing. And there's Matty Nyes and there's Brock Faber. And I'm like, they're going back to college. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they all went back and said, we want to make a run at the title. They're motivated. Their desire is to win a championship. That's why these guys came back for one more year. Yes, you don't have to take 8 hours of classes and you're staying in an apartment and you're taking classes by video. Yeah, you have a great life right now. But at the same time, they're there to just work on their game and get better. I mean, they keep saying Brock Faber is going to leave the tournament and then just somehow end up on the Wild's top 6. Which just blows my mind that a kid's going to come straight out of college and then get into the rotation. But that tells you the talent he has. Yeah. And the top line tells you the talent it has.
Oh, yeah.
And this could be a glorious weekend for Gopher hockey fans, and I hope it comes to them.
Yeah, I think it's got a very good chance to. But hockey's weird, man. It's like bounces, hot goalie, things like that. But they've got every bit as good of a chance as anybody else, and so we'll see where the chips fall. Lavelle, appreciate it as always. Go get some rest and recovery time. A lot of good sports to watch over the weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
The Twins coming on in 15 minutes, so I got to get in front of a TV.
All right, Lavelle, see ya.
Take care.
Why don't we finish with the cooler right now? 2 postscripts, quick ones to my conversation with Lavelle. Number 1, Kirill Kaprizov did skate on Wednesday, was wearing the yellow caution jersey with the Wild, so maybe his return coming fairly soon. Seems like he's ramping up at the very least. Just a few games left in the regular season, 5 for the Wild, but definitely want to get him back as soon as he is ready to go full speed. So that's a good sign for the Wild that he's participating, even if he does have that yellow jersey on. And really enjoyed Randy Johnson's story on Gopher Hockey. Logan Cooley, the parallels between him and Thomas Vanek 20 years ago, the super freshman who perhaps will lead the Gophers to an NCAA title. Vanek did it 20 years ago. Cooley trying to be part of an excellent first line and an overall very deep team, this Gophers team, to win a championship. So go check out Randy's story. Check out Chip Scoggins' column, kind of trying to end that drought after 20 years. Very talented team. They play Boston University, the first semifinal today. I think it's a late afternoon start, like 4 o'clock, so maybe knock off work a little early. Check that one out. And if they are in the championship game, that would be Saturday night. That will do it for me. Going to go wall-to-wall on the Twins tomorrow with Phil Miller, talking all sorts of stuff heading into the home opener Friday. Remember, that was postponed from today till tomorrow. Looks like it's an okay day out today, but still pretty chilly. Tomorrow looking a lot nicer. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Go look at the extended forecast. For once in your life, for once in the last few months, it is not a nightmare. It is a great thing. So go check that out. It's getting nice outside. Feels like spring is finally here. That'll do it for me today. Back at it again tomorrow.